Hello, I'm Professor Lieu. Welcome to our live stream. I'm here with art prof teaching artist Jordan McCracken-Foster. We are critiquing your artwork today. We've got two pieces. The first one is this gouache painting by Kim Sweeney, and we also have a digital painting by Neil Espinosa. If you would like to grow as an artist, but you can't afford an art class, we've got everything you need here at Art Prof, critiques and tutorials. All right, let's take a look at Neil's digital painting first. I'd like to read a little bit of Neil's artist statement so you guys have a little bit of a sense of who Neil is. Neil is 16 years old. They've been teaching themselves art. They're currently a senior in high school studying in the Philippines. And so Neil is talking about exploring the role of art as a form of communication, transcending physical boundaries, expressing feelings and ideas that are normally left unsaid. Neil says that this piece is about anxiety, wondering whether their problems are valid or not, asking if they're really drowning or if it's only in their mind. And Neil says in the statement that they're using digital painting because they don't have a lot of experience with traditional paint, but they want to achieve the lively, natural quality that you can get in a traditional painting. And they try to use color not only to depict the subject literally, but also to show a sense of atmosphere and mood as well. Okay, so we've got Neil in the live chat. How cool! Thank you so much for joining us live, Neil. This is very exciting. We love it when the artist is live. Jordan, thinking about all that stuff from Neil's statement, what's your first reaction?
I think the strongest thing about this piece is the mood coming across. It mentioned in the art statement that was about anxiety, and that's something that is really coming across based on the value, the color, and the kind of the mystery that's happening in the environment. The biggest confusion I have is really like these green blob amorphous kind of things, and I'm kind of thinking, oh, maybe that's the anxiety kind of personified, but that's really like the only major issue I have when it comes to understanding what this piece is.
I would definitely agree, Jordan. I mean, the mood is really, really strong. That's the first thing that I noticed as well. And we're going to obviously talk about some of the technical things that could be adjusted. But Neil, I think that's really important that you captured the mood because you can definitely do a digital painting that is maybe technically really accomplished and amazing, but doesn't have a mood at all and feels very bland. Why do you think Neil is able to do that in this piece? Is it the colors? Is it the images? What's making the atmosphere for you, Jordan?
Well, I think really the biggest thing is actually the value. And as many of us know, color is kind of dependent on what the value of the piece is. And because it's primarily really dark, that already gives this feeling of maybe depression, the anxiety, the darkness surrounding and closing in, feeling of uncertainty. So all those emotions are really coming to play. And then with the red coming in, it feels like like a town is just being destroyed or something in the background, just like a bunch of fire. And so it's kind of playing with our past experiences or visual libraries to say this is a very scary environment.
Neil is saying those blue blobs are supposed to be water. Should I articulate them more? Well, you could, Neil, but actually, I sort of like what Jordan said before that we don't really know what those are supposed to be. And I guess where that area becomes really interesting for me is on the figure. Because in the ocean part, yes, I could say, all right, maybe those are waves. But the thing is, nothing really explains why those waves would be swirling over that figure's face. And while I enjoy the atmosphere and the landscape, that is the part of the piece that really makes the anxiety and the emotion comes through is that we can't see the person's face. It's totally obscured. And for a lot of people, that's really unsettling to have a figure and for you to block the face. So I sort of like that we're not sure it's water. I don't know. What's your take on that, Jordan?
Yeah, I think part of anxiety comes from the unknown and being afraid of the future and things that you are uncomfortable with. And so when I first saw this, I thought it was, just maybe some alien, substance that is unlike anything in our world. And that unknown made me, question like, what is it? What is it doing? But when you say it's water, automatically we all know what water is. We all know the benefits of water and all those things, and it makes it a lot less mysterious when you put it like that. And then if you do that, then we're going to start going into all the technical issues that it may have if you're trying to get to be water, if that makes sense.
Yeah, water's a pain in the butt to paint. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, I was doing that today, and I don't like
It's a
it.
pain in the butt, and also I think what you're missing, Neil, if I'm gonna try to make it look more like water, is that the way you've done the green blobs, they look opaque to me. They don't have any of that transparency that I would expect to see with water. And water is a very tricky thing because I think some people really do go for like a realistic look, but other people can really stylize it. So one thing that I put in this video are these Japanese woodblock prints because these are not traditional paintings and they're way more graphic. And so actually the way the water has been done in these woodblock prints, it's super stylized. So that's another way to get over, I think, sometimes the challenge of, oh, I got to make it look realistic because I think some of the waves in these are beautiful. So what do you think? Would you say that maybe Neil has to push it in the other direction, like get even more stylized? Or would you think that, oh no, maybe you need to tip back to something more realistic?
I would err on the side of being more stylized, and the reason I say that is because just with the example of the water versus the blob, I think you and I agree that the blob, wherever it is probably a bit more interesting in terms of a storytelling aspect. And if that's the case, then I think with the rest you could just go all out. And and you already have some big blocky shapes in some of your areas, and the water, or the alien blob stuff. The boat is a pretty clear silhouette, and I think that it would help your piece even more because it could be inside your head. It could be this fantasy world that is built on anxiety. So why not just push it?
Ayodeji is saying, I love the painting, but I'm extremely curious about where Jordan got his haircut. I am asking because my hairline is suffering. Well, Jordan, let them know. Where'd you get that haircut?
I cut it myself, actually. I've been doing it for a couple years. My dad was a barber, and so yeah, I cut it myself earlier today.
You're
Thank you
multi-talented. You're a Renaissance
for
man.
noticing. Thanks for noticing.
We've got some great comments. Nathan is saying the lack of saturation creates a really intense mood. My Chronics is saying I like the color of the hue of the blues in the flowing water, and that entirely the whole piece is full of emotional confusion. It's so strong. Ripple of Aqua says, thanks to the shape and color of the water, I first read it as plasma, swirling around the figure like how water is depicted in a Ghibli film. Morgan Bowen says, I like how surreal the figures seem, especially in the water. Echo Grayson is saying, push it, make it more stylized. And Neil is saying, yes, I'm desperate for a haircut as well, but I only have one scissors. Yeah, it's sort of a problem for some of us that have hair that's a little bit trickier than yours, Jordan, I would say. I'm just
Should
saying
I just
I'm
wear
going
a
to leave my
beanie
hair
so
alone because it's not going to happen for me.
next time I come here, I'll just wear a beanie so no one will know. It
All
makes me
right,
look
well,
feel
let's
bad.
get back into some of the other sections of the painting. For example, what about the figure, Jordan? It's really small. We do not see that much of it. It's pretty dark, it's fairly obscured. But Neil actually did sneak in clavicles, sternum. I'm so happy. It makes me so proud. But beyond the anatomy, do you think that figure is working?
It's working for the most part. The arm's probably just a little out of the socket, in my opinion. But for the most part, it's working well. The main issue or concern I have is that it's blending too much in with the boat. Um, because it's like the same value, very similar kind of brown, and I feel like it could probably stand out even more if we changed one of those things.
Another thing I was thinking, Neil, is if I look at the lighting situation. There's almost this like fiery red that's behind the blob on the person's head. And if that is the lighting situation, that would actually mean that this figure should be backlit. Because if this figure has highlights that are right on the clavicles, that then would say, oh, there's a light source that's in front of the figure that's casting light, and there's also light coming onto the blob. And so I actually think, Neil, you would be better off, I'm sorry, getting rid of those clavicles and making that figure more like a silhouette, because it's not really about clavicles. As much as I love clavicles, it's not about the clavicles here. It's more about the blob. We need to know the figure's there, but that's sort of it. So I would say cut back on that. And then, Jordan, what do you think about the boat that the person is in?
Yeah, the boat, I think there's so much opportunity for storytelling in this boat. Like, just think about all the boats you've seen in life that are, made of wood or hand carved or whatever, and all the ornamentation that could be done, or, maybe there's something painted on it. All those things I think could really help inform the storytelling for one. The other thing that concerns me is in the front of the boat, there's like this really concave shape in the middle of it, or it appears concave, or like it's going in, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a boat shape. So it makes it feel like it's not really as stable as something like wood or whatever other materials that boat would be made of.
Wilson Nathan saying, I'm interested in art that can do both. Maybe you could experiment with parts of the drawing going realistic, specific areas being stylized to a specific purpose. That's a great suggestion, Wilson Nathan, because I don't think it has to be that homogenous. I think it can be more or less stylized in certain areas depending on what you're trying to achieve. Iodeshi says, looking at this painting reminds me of Jericho's Raft of the Medusa. The painting has an ominous atmosphere around it. Oh, if you guys don't know Jericho's Raft of the Medusa, Google it now. It's going to change your life. It's an amazing painting. It's gigantic. You'll develop an inferiority complex after you see it if you're a painter, but that's okay. That's fine. I can handle that. But we are going to look at another painter, and I cannot pronounce his name, Ivanov Ski. So he painted tons and tons of paintings of seascapes. And I mean, I look at his paintings of these ocean scenes, and they're just really emotional. So if you look at the one we're looking at now, it's called The Wrath of the Seas, and you look at the boat is tiny. It's such a small piece of the painting, and actually most of it is the water. So I actually think, Neil, you might want to think about making the figure smaller, because in a way, if the figure is smaller, it feels more vulnerable. It makes the ocean look a lot more intimidating and a lot more overbearing. Because right now, if I go to the full view, the figure is actually pretty big, and so is the boat. There's actually not that much space for the ocean. So you could try that. And another thing, Neil, is I wasn't sure, is there a particular type of boat you're trying to make? Like, Jordan, could you put a time period on this boat, or do you not really know?
Uh, I honestly have no clue. I, I couldn't really take a guess.
Yeah, it's tricky. And I think, Neil, depending on the time period, or even if you want to say, hey, this is somebody who's lost at sea, and so you have the boat falling apart, or it's somebody who's just barely hanging on, or maybe it's a motorboat, right? It's like we're going to look at it really differently if you're like on a yacht or something like that. Maybe you're not having so much anxiety there if you're on a yacht. But I think you should think about the specificity of what type of boat. I'm okay with the figure just being plain and not having any particular clothing, but I think that would definitely be a good thing to think about. Now, we do have this project idea that is on artprof.org. It's called Digital Painting in Photoshop Texture Cubes. And Jordan, you were responsible for this. So can you maybe talk about why this is a really good exercise for digital painting?
Yeah, so one of the problems that people experience, including myself, with digital painting is everything tends to look the exact same regardless of what you're painting. So it could be wood, it could be an apple, it could be slime. And for whatever reason, when you're first starting out, nothing feels like what it's supposed to. And so by practicing this, it'll start to it'll start to help you figure out, okay, this is how I should approach this material. This is how I should approach this material. And the reason it's in cubes, it's a pretty popular technique. People will either use like cylinders, cubes, spheres, whatever, just something simple so that you're not distracted by the design, but you're just trying to figure out how to paint something.
And it's really fun to just go on this page and look at some of the student examples. They're really funny. So I just find this to be so much fun. And actually, for those of you who are in the Discord channel, and if you're not in the Discord channel, come on, you got to come join us. That's what all the cool kids are doing. Just kidding, we're all dorks, so don't worry about it. But I think there is somebody in the Discord in the digital painting channel who is doing the texture cubes project, and they're posting a few every day. So it's really fun to get in there and just see what other people are up to. Let's see. Neil is saying it's based on those pad papers that had red and blue lines that we used in elementary school. I used to make lots of origami boats from that paper. That's what you should do, Neil. You should turn it into literally one of those red and blue line paper origami boats. Like, that would be really specific. How do you think that would change the narrative, Jordan?
If I was in a boat made of paper in the water, that would definitely give me more anxiety. So I think, beside the specificity of it, I think that'll also increase the level of danger and how careful you'd have to be in a situation like that. So uh, it makes it so much more specific. So I would say go with it. If that's your real idea.
And Neil, that's real. That's not what I would have thought of. If I was told to do a painting of somebody in a boat, I probably would have been like, ooh, I'll be in a Greek ship. This will be great. But you're thinking about something that's personal to you, that has meaning to it. So I would go for it. I think that would be really amazing. Yeah, and Ripple of Aqua saying it could also be good to make an origami boat in real life for you to draw reference from. That is a wonderful idea. Wow, that is great, guys. Wonderful. So we'd love to see where you go with this, Neil, because I think that the idea is great. You definitely have the atmosphere and the mood down. We just have to work out some of the more specific things about how to represent certain images. By the way, guys, if you would like for us to critique your artwork, you can submit for a free live art critique. Just go to artprof.org, click on critiques, and you will find the submission form there. Okay, the next artist we're going to talk about is Kim Sweeney. And I think I saw you in the live chat earlier, Kim. So if you're here and watching, let us know, because we love being able to ask the artist questions. So this is a piece that Kim made. It's titled Rubberneck Chorus, and it's a gouache painting. So Kim's statement is in the video description below, so take a look at that. Kim is from San Diego, California. They use painting, illustration, watercolor photography, mixed media. So they're exploring themes of mixed ethnic, immigrant, and family identities. So a lot of the images Kim's working with is their experience as a Cambodian American and daughter of a Khmer Rouge survivor, which has inspired them to use their art to create spaces to understand and heal from intergenerational trauma, conflicts of diaspora. So in these paintings, they're surreal, abstract detail. The work complicates notions of racial and gender representation that are often rigid and binary. So imbuing images with color and textures that interact in complex ways, representing the fluidity and nuance of their personal and familial life, so that others can experience validation through art. Wow, that is really intense, Kim, and I'm thrilled to talk about this because there's a lot packed into this painting. Jordan, first impressions of Kim's piece.
So the artist statement by itself has a lot to say. And when I look at the painting, I feel the exact same way, that there's so much going on. And while all the elements are really solid, I feel like it's almost too much taken at once. Like it's sort of like watching a movie and every scene is an action scene. And you're just constantly getting explosions and fighting, and there's no moment of rest. And that's how I feel when I look at this, where I get that I get some of the elements that you're saying here and there, but overall it's just a lot going on. I think you could eliminate some of those aspects.
Jordan, do you think part of that is maybe the density of text? that's doing it, or do you think it's everything combined?
Uh, Primarily the text, and the background even behind the text is really really intricate. They From what it looks like, it looks kind of like sunflowers or some sort of plant, and those are also really really detailed. And what it's doing is it's I'm not sure where the focal point is because my eye wants to jump to the red text, and then it wants me to jump to you know. But part of me is like, wait, I need to look at the characters first, and wait, I need to see the environment first. So I'm not sure what I'm supposed to look at. What is more important for me as a viewer to see?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, it's always hard to have text with visuals because 9 times out of 10, the text always wins because we can't help ourselves. We have to read it. And so in this case, I don't know, the text is at least 40% of the composition. And so we really cannot escape it in any way. And if I just look at the painting really fast without looking deeper, I actually go past the figures and I go to the text first, especially the text in the upper left where it says, Mama said there'll be days like this, there'll be days like this, Mama said. So, first of all, it's just bright red, so I'm going to read it, but also that text is bigger and it's more legible. The other text, it's so much smaller that I almost give up on trying to read it, but the red one definitely does show up a lot. So, Jordan, would you say maybe Kim needs to cut back on the text, or maybe the text needs to be moved around so it's not so much a backdrop to the people?
I think trying to understand what the hierarchy is will help. So, do you want us to actually read the text, or is the text just something to put in the background that we're not supposed to read? I think when you figure that out, that'll really help with deciding how much to put. Because I've seen images where there's text over the entire image, but you're not really supposed to read it, and you're just kind of supposed to get the idea that there's a lot of text there, but you go past it, sort of like a like what is it, like a gate, some sort of gate, uh, and so that I think that that's the really the first step when it comes to figuring that out.
Noel C. saying, I'd take a look at Basquiat's work, who used words very effectively in his paintings. When Willoughby saying, if the text was on a cold color rather than yellow, maybe it would separate itself from the figures more. That's a good point, Wen, because when we look at the painting, that bright cadmium yellow, it's hard to escape. And actually, by comparison, the colors in the figure below, they're fairly muted. And so I think that's probably one of the reasons I'm seeing the text first. Jordan, what do you think the area on the bottom is? They're these like white wave like things. I thought they were in a car, but I'm not totally sure.
The What I got was that they're floating on a riverbed or something in a car. So they're trying to hold on for dear life, basically.
Yeah, the car I think is a little bit confusing because it's so conveniently perfectly horizontal. Like if you have a car that's in water, it's going to be chaos. Like it's not going to be that orderly. I mean, my favorite part of that lower section is I love these waves. I love the texture of them, the application of paint that Kim is using, like this dry brushing stuff, which has beautiful textures, I think is great. But the car itself, I think, gets really lost. And then the transition from the car into the words, I don't know. I just feel like the people in the car in the water, it's almost like somebody cut them out of another painting and slapped them on top of the
Like,
words. So I'm just feeling a big disconnect between the two. Let's
yeah.
see. Claire Donison saying, I love the chaos. And Kim Sweeney is saying, who is the artist, by the way, wanted the text to be secondary to the figure, like a texture or sound. Lisa is saying, kind of a folk art vibe. Michael is suggesting some glazes of paint over the text. That would be one way to tamp it down a little bit so it's not so dramatic. Wen is asking whether the waves are hands. I guess that's a question for Kim. Maybe you can jump in because they do have the waves somewhat of a figurative feel to them because they are quite stylized. And Keith Larson is saying car slash boat. Dreamlike, aren't we supposed to really know, or is it a melding of experiences? Okay, so we talked a little bit about the chaos of this piece, and I will say that even though we're saying it's a little bit too much, Kim, I'd much rather tell you it's too much than to tell you I think your painting is empty. Why do you think that's a good thing, Jordan?
Uh, so I have this struggle where I often don't push things far enough. And when you don't push it far enough, it's hard to guide someone and direct them. But when you go over the top and just put every idea down, then for someone to say scale it back is actually much easier because the thinking has already been done. Maybe you just have to cover this up or, blend this with that and, those sorts of things. So you're actually doing the hard work first if you're able to scale back later on.
And Kim, it's so easy for us to say, hey, cut back on this or remove this, as opposed to me saying, I want more. This is empty. You got to fill it in with something, but I don't know what it is you're going to fill it in with. So I think this is great that it is such a densely packed piece. Now, as far as the story that Kim talks about in their artist statement in the video description below, about how their work is about mixed ethnic, immigrant, and family identities, do you see that coming across in the piece?
Um, I would say so. I mean, I'm definitely getting a sense of community with this because each of the figures have different skin complexions. They have different facial features. One of them looks like the skull, so I'm not sure what that's about. But they all seem very, very different. And they're just kind of thrown into the situation together.
Let's see. Kim is saying the ways were there to convey the car is going both left and right, like the movement is exploding outwards from the center, like a watery highway. The car is flat. So, Kim, I would say make the waves even more dramatic then, because they feel almost like an accessory right now. And I love this idea of exploding outwards and going in different directions. The great concept. But visually, I'm not getting that across very clearly. Wen is saying, I love the faces, really sculptural. And Kim is saying, I didn't realize the artist statement was supposed to be related specifically to the work. Relatively new. That's okay. Don't worry about it. I mean, I feel like any artist statement where we understand something about you, just your background and what type of stuff you're interested in making is really, really helpful. So, Kim, I'm obviously you can't write a new statement right now, but maybe if you want to just pop into the chat, if there is a particular narrative that you're trying to show in this specific painting, that would help us out a little bit so we can see. Because, Kim, I think that the subject matter that you're talking about, experience as a Cambodian American, daughter of a Khmer Rouge survivor, I mean, that is wow. That is really powerful subject matter. The fact that it's your family makes it even more poignant. And so I think that's amazing that you're doing that. So, Jordan, what would you recommend for Kim moving forward? Because this is such powerful subject matter. But to a certain degree, it's also a little bit stressful because you have almost a responsibility here when it's something that serious. So, what do you think?
Um, I would just say moving forward, find a way to put everything into bite-sized chunks for yourself. Because maybe kind of what we'll be talking about with the chaos and everything, it's just too much put into one painting, at least the way that's being shown right now. So it's very possible that there is a way to convey all these ideas and still put it in one piece. But we want you to try and do it in a way that leaves room for the painting to breathe, for the composition to feel balanced and have your ideas come across because there's a lot of them that you had that you put in the artist statement and the chat as well. So that means that you have to put a painting into two or three pieces, like a triptych or something like that. Then you can always do that. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I would back that up, Kim, and say that you should never feel that you have to do it all in one painting. A lot of my students will do that. And I'm like, look, you got your whole life to make this artwork. You don't have to use up all of your ideas in a single painting. It's okay to break it up, take your time, try to whittle it down to something more specific. All right, Kim is saying the narrative I was going towards is driving on a highway, seeing another person in a car singing to the radio, then being lost in emotion and in their own world. Whereas the water is like the rest of the traffic on the road and the monotony of everyday life. Okay, well, I would say then, Kim, the figures and the car and the water, those are all doing it. I would really cut back on the text if that's the case, because the text doesn't really tell me that much. And also, I didn't know the text was the radio. Like, there's nothing in there that says, I'm listening to NPR or I'm jamming out to the Rolling Stones. Like, we don't really know what the purpose is of that text, because something like Mama said, there will always be days like this. That sort of sounds like, oh, you're quoting your mother, or maybe it's some hip song I don't know about, but I don't know, some way to show that a little bit more. I don't know. What do you think, Jordan, now that you know what the intent is?
Yeah, I agree. I definitely I thought that the text was all like a bunch of proverbs or something like that, especially the one that we read about. Mama said that, when I hear that phrase, I just think back to a film where it's like a grown adult saying, "Yeah, this is what Mama used to tell me." And so now that I understand that those are lyrics, I actually don't know if you really need them. I think there's a lot of ways to actually convey that someone's listening to music and singing without text. And also, I think that the putting even more prominence on the person who is singing would also help. Because a couple figures have their mouths open, but I think even one guy can be even more exaggerated, make him even bigger, make him even dancing a little bit. Something like that will really help to display what you're trying to convey.
So, Kim, there are two artists that I think you should take a look at. The first one is actually a comic artist. And now I know you're not a comic artist, but I'm actually a really big fan of looking at artwork in other genres, because I think oftentimes people think, oh, I'm a painter, I should only look at paintings. So, why do you think, Jordan, Kim could get something out of looking at somebody like Robert Crumb in a totally different genre like comics?
I was watching a video today and it repeated the quote that I'm sure we said in our prop before, but it says, "Good artists borrow, but great artists steal." And that can be from anywhere, whether it's a song or a movie or another medium of art like a comic or whatever it is. Taking pieces from things that other people have tried out, I think will really help inform you as an artist. Taking things from one source often will make it seem like, oh, they're going to be the next put artist name here. But if you take a bunch of inspiration from all these sources, then that allows people to go like, oh, that you're super original, and you're like, I just took it from here, 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 here. I've done it before, and no one has really been able to pull the pieces together and figure out where I'm getting all.
So on the flip side, we've got Robert Crumb, who I think does sort of similar facial expressions. They're very exaggerated, like yours. But we also have this photographer, I'm probably going to mispronounce his name, Ramissa Mak, who does artwork that is about Cambodia. And I think that it's great to look at people who are working with the same subject, even if their stuff looks nothing like yours. You just get to see another take on the same subject matter. And these are photos, so they are not in the same material that you're working in. But I just think it'd be really great for you to research other artists in other genres, because it can really be eye-opening to step outside of your field of study and see something quite different. Dream Williams is saying, how can I get in on this? Interested in getting some feedback. Well, if you go to artprof.org and you click on critiques, there's a submission form. These live critiques are free, so you submit, see if we accept you, and then we go from there. And Wen Willoughby is saying, are they photos of tiny installations or sculptures? They're amazing. I think they are, Wen. I don't know a huge amount about Ramissa Mak, but I'm sure that there's a lot of information about them online. I believe that there was a big feature on them in the New York Times a little ways back, so I'm sure you can find that article. Kim is saying, Robert Crumb, one of my favorites. Never heard of Ramissa Mak. Great suggestions. Cool. Well, that's awesome, guys. I hope you will hang out with us on the Art Prof Discord. The invite link is in the video description below, and it's really fun, guys. We have works in progress, critique channels, finished artwork channels. You want to talk to me about guinea pigs and cats? We're in there, and we would love to have you guys join us. Check out artprof.org. Lots of free goodies on that site for you as well. Please subscribe to our channel, because all the cool kids are doing it. And also, you'll get to join the Art Prof family. So what's not to love about that? And thank you so much to our top supporters who make everything possible, who keep the lights on. Thank you to Kim. Thank you to Neil for sharing your artwork with us, and for everybody, all your wonderful thoughts and contributions to the discussions. Thank you so much, everybody. Please stay safe. We will see you next time. Bye.